So today we're talking about going back to church, turning our focus, our intention, our power to the idea of spiritual community, to the idea of organized, being part of an organization. And what does that give you? What does that provide for your life that matters? You know, as I said in the very first talk, that we need to be less about celebrating ourselves for what we believe and more about developing ourselves for what we can create. Okay, I don't have to harp on that. So now we're to the developing ourselves part. Okay, that's what we do here in Unity. You know, originally when there started to be people that left the central core of Unity School of Christianity, which was out in Kansas City, and they started teaching people and training them and giving them credentials to go out and lead on their own. They did not consider that those people were going out to create churches. They considered that they were going out to create centers of spiritual education, not religious education, spiritual education. Learning about the unseen realm of consciousness that we have the power to wake up to awaken and invest our awareness into greater and greater empowerment to demonstrate this reality in our day-to-day lives. That's what Unity is, right? Would you agree? So they were called Unity Center of Christianity. That's what the early ones were called. And then in the 60s, the IRS was giving them such a hard time that they decided to form the Association of Unity Churches so they could get, with no argument, 501c3 nonprofit status. And so the idea of centers kind of went out the window. But it's still true that our work here is to develop ourselves, to educate and learn things that you really can't find anywhere else, and empowering ourselves. And one of the most, one of the most critical skills that we work on here is communication skills. Well, we're not the only place that teaches communication skills, granted, but it's really important here. And it's not so much that you have to get it right as if you get it wrong, you get a chance to fix it. You get a chance to learn from it. You get a chance to forgive yourself and be forgiven and move on. And it makes for even deeper affiliation when that happens, The communication skills that we really look at and really try to internalize are communicating without being adversarial, not making the other person wrong, sharing that you hear them, reflecting what you heard, offering what your need is, and coming to an agreement, making agreements and keeping them. That is a basic bottom line communication skill. And that's the thing that we are always breathing into our communications. One of the things I like to say is when I tell somebody I'm going to do something for them, like send them an email or go visit them, or it's like, by when will I do it? A by when. That's a really important part of an agreement. Not just I will do it, but I will do it by Wednesday, by Friday. Okay, yeah. And that pins it down into the three-dimensional world, which is very useful. Another thing that we do in our spiritual community, in our journey together, is we seek the higher way, I like to call it. We seek the higher way. You know how I've said, we don't want to live the life of mere mortals. You've heard me say that. We transcend the life of mere mortals. You see. Like, for instance, I had a call recently to do counseling because one member of the family was really mad at the other member of the family for how they treated them, and they weren't gonna associate with them anymore. So rather than come in and hammer out the nuts and bolts of it, we prayed about it on the energetic level. When you look at that person and say, I'm sorry, I love you, forgive me, thank you. It's so powerful. We seek the higher way. We don't have to be bound to the nuts and bolts of day-to-day human interactions. The same way with all of our endeavors in life, We are open to possibility, to the activity of spirit, like Alan was sharing with us. It comes in when you're open to it, and even when you're not. So we seek the higher way. Another thing is, I love to say this, we worship and adore the revelation of expanded consciousness. There's a feeling of that when we have our meditation in the silence. To worship and adore this experience. To worship and adore revelation itself. And that's another thing that is most prized in the unity culture here. That all of unity is based on having that mystical experience of connecting to the power that is divine, that is unseen, that you feel at every level of your being. It's undeniable. And that is what we worship and adore. And it's represented at Christmas time with the birth of Jesus. That is the metaphor for that experience of the revelation of new awareness, of expanded consciousness. When we worship and adore that experience. And as Charles Fillmore told us, that is going on all the time. Then another thing that we do as a center of spiritual education is we learn about self-love. So important. We do not think of man as being born in sin. No, never. We never teach that. We think of humanity, of every human being, as created in the image and likeness of the divine, of God. So how can it be born in sin? No. So there you have our basis for self-love. So as beings that are divine, that's our first principle. God is all good. Our second principle, every human being is divine. So as beings that are divine, you see, we are able to love ourselves in a very special way. It's not personal aggrandizement. It's not egotism. It is deep appreciation and knowledge of who you are. And that leads to self-care. And here, in every unity work, that's where they attract all the alternative alternative and holistic teachings of how to care for yourself so that you can thrive, so that you can nurture your body, your emotions, your intellect in the most positive way, the most healing way, the most whole way. And then I want to talk about service. I don't know how to explain how holy, how sacred service is. But if you remember the 7 truths of the perennial philosophy, which was something that was distilled by Aldous Huxley in England, that all the teachings of all of the world boil down to these 7 truths. And the last one is that when you realize your divinity, when you experience God, you can't help but serve. It results in a life grounded in selfless service. And I just see all of us serving in such beautiful ways. The community, each other, our families, this church, service, sacred, and it should be appreciated and celebrated. And I invite all of you to join with me in doing that, as much of that as you can. So the service then comes out of compassion. Compassion is such a wonderful feeling, a vibration. It's only possible when you get ego out of the way. So when you have tamed, the fascination that we all have to deal with of our dramas, when you have tamed that, and you can see and feel other people's pain, other people's experience, the whole world situation, and understand that it is only through our ignorance, our failure to realize the power that we have, our failure to see the good in everything, that there is suffering, and we have great compassion for all the world. That is something that we totally emphasize and bring forth. Compassion is the color. It's kind of like the dye that goes behind everything that we say. And then as a fellowship, as a community, we celebrate. We celebrate together. And that is a very special part of being in this membership, in this congregation. And it's something that I'm so grateful for every holiday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Labor Day, to find the spiritual meaning in it and share it with those who understand it with me. Share it with those who are heart connected to really celebrating the essence, the holiness of a holy day together. And we try to make our celebrations, special and unique and memorable. And today I'm doing that. Today I've got something, when I come to the close of my sermon, everyone's getting a certificate of membership, which we are going to read together. Okay. All right, I'll tell you about that later. So then, fellowship itself. The fellowship here among truth students, to me, is the most authentic. I mean, I don't really have such a deep commonality with people who are not embracing the mystical side of life. The mainstream worldview is still materialism. The scientific community is still not acknowledging the presence of consciousness. But for us who have, when Jesus said, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed it to you, but my Father has revealed it to you." The intuition, the superconscious mind reveals it to us. And we come to a greater and greater appreciation and understanding of the unseen realm of spirit. And then we have rites of passage. For instance, when we christened little Adele Catherine Elizabeth Davis, when we christened little the baby of Jessica, when we've had weddings, when we had our, the last time Jim Keating was here, he came to the Ash Wednesday service, which we had downstairs with a ritual of what we call the angel wash, and people stand in 2 rows, and someone walks between them, and we whisper into their ear words of praise and encouragement. And that was one of the most unique ones I've seen, because usually they give you an affirmation to say, and you just say it. But these were things that were coming from the depths of our understanding of each individual person as we've known them over the years. And it was extraordinary. It was just uplifting and transforming. rites of passage. And, we can come up with as many rites of passage as we can think of. There's no limit to the rites of passage one can do. It doesn't have to be approved by some authority. A rite of passage is acknowledging that we have experienced a certain eventuality, and we're moving forward from that. It's ceremonial. It's wonderful. This is where we can experience that kind of experience. So now I want to pass out to you, if you're here, by default, you're a member, whether you know it or not. Okay. So would you give this is my special ceremonial basket. Take one and open it up, and we're going to read it together. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about this. It's tiny. Does it need to be big? No. Okay, and it has a feather on it. Do you remember last year when we had our membership initiation ceremony, we used a feather? Well, I considered using feathers for this occasion, but it seems like feathers would be extremely adhesive to germs. So we're not using a real feather. We just have a picture of one. And it represents, like last year, the feather represents ascension. It represents rising in consciousness. Isn't that nice? I had just the right amount. Ha! How about that? So you see the feather that represents rising up, and that's kind of our common theme of our membership. I would say that's the logo of Unity membership, is a feather. Okay? So I would like to read it together as a joint reading. I need me some glasses. And we'll start with the very top where it says unity. Hold on a second. Okay. Everybody got theirs? Are you ready? Okay, together. Unity of Muskegon, Certificate of Membership. Congratulations. You are a partner in the agreement of ascending souls to remain in the vibration of love, to serve with compassion, to grow in the competence and skill to create our lives in cooperation and appreciation, to trust in the power of absolute good being the ultimate reality of consciousness, to remain in this mystery of being as an open, receptive, radiating center of divine love. And so it is. This is different from last year, and every year vows renewing will be different. Because we don't have to renew the same vows. We're just making new vows. And it's based on our previous progress, but it's moving forward to even greater spiritual understanding and mastery. This is our mission. This is our work. This is our destiny. Amen. Our statement for our meditation is, in the fellowship of spiritual community, I thrive. So let's breathe into that. Let it embed in the deepest levels of our being. Let us be willing and empowered to engage in the fellowship of spiritual community, that we may truly thrive in every way. More abundance, greater health, relationships of harmony and fulfillment, every area of our lives glorified, lifted up, and filled with light. And so as we let these words be our words, in the fellowship of spiritual community, I thrive. We abide in ever greater realization in the silence. Holy, 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 holy is thy nature, as me, as thee, as one. Amen.